I'm on a mission this year to create more machine knitters, and to do that I need to make knitting machines more accessible and less scary. And that means making patterns that you can just use and you don't need all the fancy attachments. I already have a sock pattern for a double bed machine, but not everyone has a ribber, so I need a sock pattern for a single bed machine. This is the pattern drafting video. If you're looking for this tutorial, there's a link in the description. All right, let me walk you through the anatomy of the sock. There are a lot of ways that you can make a sock. This is one of the simplest, which is what we want when we're learning and getting started. Hold on, let me get a sock. I'll be right back. All right, here we have a sock. This is a sock that I knit on my double bed machine. So the first thing we have is a cuff that we cast on here. And then we have some short row shaping for the heel. You can see a bit of it here. And then we knit the body of the sock, and then we have decreases for the shaping of the toe. And let me show you an overhead view of this. So we have the cast on cuff, we have short rows for the heel, then we have the body of the sock, and then we have decreases for the toe. Now, when you're knitting in the round, you can make a sock like this, but when you're knitting on a flatbed machine, you need a side seam somewhere. We could put it down the top, we could put it down the bottom, but the easiest way to do this is to put it down the side. So the seam is going to go from the cuff, down through the heel, down the body of the foot, and then we're going to shape the toe with short rows and graft it on top. This one is grafted at the very tip. But if you wanted to do that on a flatbed sock, you'd have to shape the tip of the sock in 2 halves, and that requires breaking the yarn and doing extra work that we don't need to do. So, the way we're going to flatten this out is we are going to cast on this number of stitches, knit the cuff, and then put half of the stitches into hold. And here is the halfway point. And then we're going to short row in for the heel, and then short row out for the heel, and then continue knitting on this side and knit up for the foot of the sock, and then put half the stitches into hold again. We're going to short row for the toe, and then short row back out for the toe, and then these are live stitches here, and this will get folded over and attached here. So, pretty basic. Let's talk about the measurements we need for this. This distance here, this whole width of the sock, is going to be the circumference of the foot. And then the distance from the toe here to the bottom of the heel here is going to be toe to heel. And those are the only measurements we need for this sock. So we're going to cast on this number of stitches, knit a folded hem, and then knit the heel, knit the foot, knit the toe, and then graft with the Kitchener stitch, and then it'll be seamed up the side. And that's it. That's pretty much it. Now, I draft these as pattern generators, so the inputs that I need are the distance between your toe and your heel, and the circumference of your foot, and then the gauge that you have for this particular yarn. And then I'm going to transform this pattern into code, and then you can input your measurements and get a sock that fits you. And you can knit them both exactly the same way, or you can knit one this way and then you can knit one flipped and you'll get a sock. Let me translate this to code and then make a prototype and see how it goes. Okay, here we have the pattern translated into code, and I copy pasted some stuff, so there's probably some extra stuff in here. At some point I will come through and refactor all of this, but that day is not today. So we have a few input values. We need foot circumference, foot length, gauge stitches, and gauge rows, and this is just my input stuff. Then I've got a couple utility functions to do some basic math for sizes of the foot and number of stitches and number of rows. And then some information about the pattern, measurements, cast on for the hem, shape the heel, knit the foot, knit the toe, and then finishing. And this is what it looks like on the website. This one went pretty quick. All right, it's time to do a prototype and make sure that I did my math right. This is my Brother 910 standard gauge knitting machine, and you know what? If you're here for a drafting video, you probably know what's going on, so I'm gonna turn off the voiceover for now and let you enjoy the music. Here is my first prototype of the single bed sock. It's already been washed and blocked. Can you see it? It is fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. I think I'm going to tweak the instructions a little bit so that when you finish the toe, you wind up on the inside, so you have fewer ends to weave in. This has a side seam, and I want to finish the toe on the inside so that you get your stitch across and get to the side seam, and then can use that long tail to finish the side seam down the side. The sock is fine. It does what it's supposed to do. It's the size that I expected it to be, but it's got some fit issues. Let me demonstrate. So when you knit a sock that's exactly the same size as your foot, it winds up feeling a little loose. And like, it's wearable and you could wear it to bed, but it's not going to fit like the socks that you'd buy commercially or other socks that you'd make. And I drafted my double bed sock pattern at 90% ease, so it's slightly smaller than your foot and it'll fit a little bit better. I posted about this pattern that I was drafting on the machine knitting Discord, and yes, there is a machine knitting Discord. It spawned out of the subreddit. I will link to it in the description. And somebody has already made one, and she had some feedback on the sizing as well, so I'm definitely going to add the ease in and make it a little bit smaller. It's really easy to do because I drafted this pattern in code, so I just need to go in and add a constant. That will make it a little bit smaller. Here we have my single bed sock pattern. Let me just close the side panel. Goodbye. And I want to add some negative ease to this. Okie doke, let's put it here. What are we gonna call this? Ease? 90%. And then when we do any kind of circumference, we are going to multiply by the ease. And then we're going to use it in the total rows as well. That looks fine. And then I'm going to tweak the short row instructions a little bit so that we wind up with the seam where I want it on the top of the foot. And leave a note about the ease. Ta-da! Format. So, set the carriage back from hold. Put half the stitches into hold on the opposite side of the carriage. Let's see. Knit one row. And then duplicate this. And then we are going to do the same thing on the toe. Okay, now let's look at the preview and make sure that it is doing what I want it to do. So you are the single bed sock, and then our measurements are what I was working with before, 60 stitches. And I'm just going to double check with my calculator on my phone. That's good enough. Put 30 into hold, put 30 stitches into hold. Okay, I'm happy with that. Time to make another prototype. Okay, I have my second sock with my modifications. I ran out of yarn, so I had to switch to a different color. So this is the first sock, and then this is the second. The second sock is knit with 90% ease, both in the circumference of the foot and the length of the foot. And it's not blocked yet, but I'm not going to block it. This is just a prototype. So let's see how it fits. That is much more what you'd expect from a sock. And let me compare it to the other one. Here's the first one. It's a bit loose, and I don't know how it's showing up on camera, but it like would easily slip off. And then here's the second sock, and it's nice and fitted and tight, and it'll stay on your foot. So I'm happy with the pattern as it is. I'm going to leave it up, and y'all can go find it. There's a link in the description. Now that I have the pattern drafted, it's time to make a tutorial video for the LK150 so that all y'all beginners can learn how to make your first sock, but that video is still coming. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing, and let me know if there are any other single bed beginner patterns that you'd like, and I can see about drafting some more. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting!